This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
Hi, from Philadelphia to Erie and from Pittsburgh to Scranton, it's Behind the Headlines. I'm Charlie Greenewald, Senior Fellow at the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy, and I'm joined as usual by my co-host, Maura Donnelly. Maura, welcome.
Hello, Charlie.
It's been a while since I've seen you.
It has. We've been ships passing in the night in the last couple months, so it's nice to see you.
Well, it's nice to see you too, and it's fortunate we had Jerry Strickmatter and Dave Atkinson
they did a great
pinch
job.
hit for us, and I think they did a great job too. Today we're going to, as you know, it's budget season.
It is budget season.
Again.
There are a lot of other names for budget season, but we'll go with budget season.
Okay. Well, it's budget season, and one of the top topics, of course, on the Capitol Hill has to be education.
Yes.
And what better person to talk about education, specifically higher education, than Ken Mash. Ken, of course, is the president of APSCUF, the union that represents all the faculty in the 14 state universities. And we're so happy to have you back, Ken. Welcome.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Maura. It's great to be back.
Nice to see you.
You have had, you are one individual, I think, in the whole Commonwealth that has more stress put upon you than perhaps any other. Your predecessor knew all about this.
That's true. No, I think the governor, he has some pressure on him too.
The governor has
just a little bit.
You have you have a certain entourage, and you have a staff that helps you. But the governor has a much larger staff to relieve the stress on him. You need, you need some recognition. And
well, I appreciate that, Charlie.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Let's talk a little bit about the budget. I believe we believe in the importance of education and higher education, that it in fact prepares young people for their careers and their lives, and it transmits civilization. What's the budget look like for higher education? Where are we going? Are we going backwards, forwards, or are we staying the same?
Okay, so the governor in his budget address did say that he wanted to increase the budget for the allocation for the state system of higher education. That's our 14 publicly owned universities by 2%, which is, the Board of Governors had said that they needed $60 million. This comes out to about $9 million.
Oh, that's
so,
a big difference.
Yeah, that's a very big difference, but we're in a position, and this is such a difficult budget period, where he did not recommend any increases for Penn State, Pitt, or Temple. We don't want to look at gift horse in the mouth. Right. The state-relateds in his budget aren't getting anything. So we don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth, but by the same token, we can't ignore the impact that that's having on our universities.
Well, so it is budget season, so are there going to be hearings that you're going to be involved in coming up?
Well, those hearings already took place.
Okay.
So we had both the House hearings and the Senate hearings, and at those hearings, much to our chagrin, a lot of that conversation was about the comments that had been made earlier by the chancellor about the possibility, perhaps, of mergers or closures or repurposing some of our universities. We would have hoped and desired to have that conversation be mostly about the fact that we need more allocation for our universities, because essentially our enrollment, although there have been declines, and you can't ignore those declines in recent years, but our enrollment system-wide is about what it was 10 years ago. But yet this funding is well below what it was 10 years ago, and that's put a lot of pressure on our universities, but most importantly, it's put a lot of pressure on our students.
Well, I think a lot of people, when they hear the cost of education, they think solely about tuition. But that's just the beginning of what it costs to go to school. Can you talk a little bit about those rising expenses for students?
Sure. And the state system itself did a study in 2012. It had outside people come in to look at it. They were concerned at that time about what would be the impact of increasing tuition on enrollment. But one of the things that they told them right away is families don't care per se about tuition. What they care about is the total college cost.
Right.
So it's the bottom line that everybody is worried about, and you're right. So we haven't just seen increases in tuition. We've seen increases in fees across campuses. We have seen increases in tuition in different levels at some of our universities, and I think I've been here speaking about it before, that there's been these per credit tuition plans that have been at several universities. But also on top of that, there's been increases in housing costs. sometimes 2 and 3 times what they were a few years ago.
Wow.
Well, when we look at these costs, Ken, you talk about housing costs increasing so dramatically. Isn't it true that across the state system as a whole, most of the universities have been essentially replacing their dormitories, which have been paid for, where you get a basic, you get a desk and a closet and maybe a chest of drawers and a bed.
That's all you need.
And access to a bathroom. Now, everyone has gone to suites. And everybody believes that that is what the families and what the students want. I'm sure the students do, but when they start looking at the costs of that versus the cost of the old-fashioned dormitory, how does that shake out?
True. I mean, I think, of course, the students want that. Sure, they want that. I mean, we all have a lot of wants.
We've all pretty much gone along with it.
I think it's a matter of knowing what your market is, knowing what your purpose and who you're trying to serve is. I think it's my belief that our universities were created to really serve working class people, lower middle class folks, to help them achieve the American dream, to give them an opportunity. In fact, it's our mission to provide a high quality education at an affordable cost. When all the universities, not just ours, but all the universities, starting about 10 years ago, got into this mad dash to start to build these apartment-style and suite-style dorms, I don't think they truly thought out what is the impact on that on lower-income students. Mm-hmm. Because if you're going to be increasing those costs significantly, you're going to shut out students. So we're really concerned about our students who are at our campuses and the kind of debt that they're taking on to do it, whether they can afford to stay another year, because some of the universities have now, on top of increasing their costs for housing, have also said you have to be on campus in that housing for 2 years. Okay, so we're concerned about our students and that go there now, but we're also asking the question: how many students are not going to the university at all because they just can't afford it, or for them the debt that they would have to take on looks so steep that they and their families look at that and say, look, I'm not going to put you in that kind of bind. If your average family income is $50,000 and I say to you that you're going to wind up with $40,000 in debt, that's very different than if you're making 90 or 100,000 and I say it's a 40. Now, we can make a case, a fair case, that looking at what's going to happen in the world and the projections that are there, that even so, with that $40,000 debt, it'll be worth it over your career. But I think it's extremely intimidating to look at that debt up front.
So I hear there's a study being done by the state system about all of this. So can you talk a little bit about what the objectives of the study are and time frame and what you think they're going to try to accomplish with it?
Right. So the chancellor at the State of the System address several weeks ago made this sort of pronouncement that we're going to be doing this study. He had been talking about it for a while, that we're going to do this study. But he went on to talk about other states and what they're doing. And he said that other states are struggling with this issue, and they've done closures, and they've done mergers. And he said, I'm not saying that we're going to do that. So in fairness, he never said that we're going to do that. Yeah. But he said, he asked the question, will we have to do that? I can't answer that question, and neither can you. And there were media there, and of course, the statement being what it is, they picked up on that part of it the most and ran with it. I think it was really unfortunate. It came at a time when our universities were recruiting students, and to put the word out there, and I think a lot of students, people in the communities were asking, is your university going to shut down? Is it going to be merged with someone else? And that can't help our enrollment in the end. So, we were concerned about that. I'm happy to see that in more recent weeks, they've sort of been dialing that back a little bit, saying, look, closures are a last resort. We have no intention of trying to close them, that they're looking for ways to, structure the system so that it's the most cost efficient that it could possibly be. But let me just say that overall, I find that whole question about looking just at our universities and saying, is the university succeeding? Is the university failing? To be extremely disturbing, because it's asking entirely the wrong question. It's treating our public universities like they're businesses, and they're not businesses. The real question that needs to be asked is, is the Commonwealth doing what it needs to prepare for the future? Is the Commonwealth adequately serving a generation of students? And when we look at the allocation and the failure to increase that allocation, what that's done to tuition, what that's done to fees, the possibility of closing students out, I think the numbers speak for themselves, that we are increasingly turning our backs on a generation of students.
And there we have studies, Ken, if you could talk about that for a second, that show that for every $1 that the state system spends in the various communities that it's located in across the Commonwealth, that there will be, $11 in economic activity generated by each dollar that's spent by the state system.
That's a great point, Charlie, because I've been focusing mostly on the impact on the student and on this generation. But there's no doubt that our universities are economic engines. Mm-hmm. And they're engines for their communities. Most of our universities are the #1 employer in their county, or #2 or #3. They provide jobs to that community. But we also overall add to the Commonwealth. And of course, our students, when they graduate, become taxpayers and put money back into the Commonwealth. Our universities, overwhelmingly our graduates, stay in Pennsylvania. So we're training people who are going to stay here and are going to be taxpayers. And I think that you could wind up in a situation where you're being penny wise, pound foolish. And when we don't adequately support our universities, that's exactly what we're doing.
So we do spend a lot of time when we have you with us talking about the challenges and difficulties. And we just touched on something very positive. Is there something else really positive about all of the universities that you want to tell us that's going on right now?
Well, I know that at each one of our universities, and I'm very proud to represent our faculty and our coaches. We put out, every single day, wonderful things that our faculty are doing on the campus, that our students are doing on their campus, that are, amazing research, community service, and things of that sort. These are great institutions that continue to provide great education to students. We just need to make sure we're helping them out.
Well, we only have about 20 seconds left, Ken. What do you see happening on Capitol Hill and related to the budget? You think there's a hope that maybe the state system will be able to get a little bit more, or just hold the governor's recommendation?
Yeah, we're always hopeful that we'll get a little bit more money, but
and you'll ask for it too.
Well, yeah, and we do ask for more money, but we're also realistic and we understand what's going on in the Commonwealth right now. So we're concerned not just about this year, we're concerned about what's going to be happening into the future. And I think what we need to do is to tell a story about our universities, the true story, which is, as you said, a positive story about what we do for the Commonwealth. And we need to make sure that the legislators understand that and that the governor has a good sense of what we do.
Okay, Ken, thank you very much for joining Maureen and me today.